Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. The Eagles OTA tomorrow is the final mandatory show up for the Birds before they take a little bit of time off. We'll have plenty to discuss this offseason. We got a Mosher Monday mailbag edition of Football at 4. A lot of questions for Geoff Mosher as he joins us right now for a Monday edition of Football at 4 on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. What's going on, Moshe?
I'm good, Mike. I got a question for you. How far away are you from just leading off your shows with the Eagles? Who cares if it's June or July with the way things are going with the baseball town?
I know that people are down, but people do like to complain, so we do have a lot of complaints today. I feel like the complaint department, I'm answering a lot of those questions.
I would imagine that would be the case.
Don't forget, you can check out Geoff Mosher's coverage as well over at phillyvoice.com. We got a Mosher mailbag edition. But before we get there, Jaire Alexander was released today, kind of a surprise move out of nowhere. They released him, apparently not as big as a surprise, people in the know, but they could not come to terms, so they just flat out released him. Jaire Alexander make any sense for Philadelphia?
Absolutely, he makes sense for Philadelphia, Mike, because he makes sense for any team that's trying to add a two-time Pro Bowl cornerback to their defense, which why wouldn't you want to if you want to win in 2025? So he's a very, very good player, Mike. One of the best corners in the league when he's healthy, two-time Pro Bowl, two-time second-team All-Pro. More importantly, he's a playmaker, 12 interceptions in his career. He has playoff experience. He's been to the NFC Championship game twice, 2 years in a row. You remember they lost to the Niners and then lost to the Bucks, I believe it was. So he's a guy who has a ton of experience, and he's a good player. And if you're looking to replace Darius Slay, as the Eagles are, then he's a guy that makes a lot of sense. And you put him opposite Quinyon Mitchell and with Cooper DeJean at nickel and what you've got on defense, and you feel a lot better from a talent perspective about maintaining that standard of being a top defense. Now, with all that said, there's a bunch of reasons also why he's a risk and dangerous to sign.
Yeah, one of the things I tweeted out this morning, can you get him on a one-year prove-it deal? He's missed he's played 14 games the last 2 years, so he has not played a whole heck of a lot because of injury issues. Is that something that maybe the Eagles can say, hey, listen, you've been hurt a lot. We want you bad. Do you want to come here on a good team winner on a one-year prove-it deal? We'll pay you more money, but it'll be on a one-year deal. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the ideal scenario for the Eagles to be able to get him on a one-year deal, incentive-laden. And if it doesn't work out, you still got your backups. You can make it, or you're not locked in long-term. The question is, and I'm very interested to see this, is will he get more than a one-year deal? I mean, he's a good player. Again, he's missed 50% of the games over the last 4 years. That's really the only reason that he might not get a one-year deal. But the crazy thing about him, Mike, is we tend to think of him as being in the league. I mean, he's been in the league for 7 years as one of those older corners or veteran corners. He's 28 years old. When the Eagles got Darius Slay and traded for him from the Lions, Slay was 29. So he's even younger than when the Eagles got Slay. He's not that old. Injuries are really the only thing that's held him back. So with the teams that need corners, that want to compete, you're talking about the Cowboys especially, right? Maybe Washington. There are teams that need cornerback help. I wouldn't be surprised if a market develops for him and that he's able to get more than a one-year deal out of this.
Yeah, listen, you take a look at what Alexander has bring to. He's 28 years old. He's been limited to 7 games in each of the last 2 seasons due to injuries. He's been to odds with this organization on a contract. He wanted to get a raise. They didn't want to pay him. So, basically he's out on the street looking for a new team. But you put Jaire Alexander on the other side of Quinyon Mitchell. Have you upgraded your spot over Darius Slay?
You might have. I mean, Slay was a playmaker too. You've gotten no worse. Now, Slay didn't have any interceptions last year, and there was he battled the knee a little bit. He wasn't the Slay of maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but he was still really good. But the question is, are you upgrading over Kelee Ringo, obviously, or even Adoree Jackson? If you go look at Adoree Jackson's career, he's another first-round pick who's played in the playoffs. But Adoree Jackson has 4, I believe, career interceptions in more games played, about 20 more games played than Jaire Alexander, which just goes to show you how much of a playmaker Jaire can be and how good he is when he is healthy.
Talk with Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 here on a Sports Bash Monday. We're going to get into some mailbag questions. We got a lot of questions for Mosher on this Monday, and throughout the summer we'll do some mailbag questions for him. Jaire Alexander, he was released today. He's a cornerback from Green Bay, for those of you who don't know who he is. He is now available. We'll see if the Eagles even have any interest. By the way, the betting odds on Alexander's next team, they have San Francisco as the favorite, Miami number 2, Philadelphia 6-1 at number 3. Some of the other guys, other teams out there. So Philadelphia, apparently the betting odds think that the Eagles could have a chance to go that direction. And then I guess that would come into if you added him as the outside corner, Cooper DeJean would basically be able to kind of remain in the role that he was in a year ago, maybe a little bit of safety, but that would really solidify that spot. And I guess I'll start with that question as we get into some mailbag stuff. Is that spot an area that needs an upgrade, or are you okay with the competition they have, Adoree Jackson, Kelee Ringo?
I mean, I'm okay with it because, it's not like, 2 days ago I knew Jaire Alexander would definitely be a free agent, but I think the Eagles have done what they could as far as giving themselves a fairly high, a 4th-round pick, entering his 3rd year, a guy who's had experience in Kelee Ringo, and then someone to compete with who's got a resume and some pedigree. Adoree Jackson is on a 1-year deal. He's played in the division. He's played in a bunch of different defensive schemes. He's played in the playoffs before with Tennessee. So, again, not known for being a playmaker, but between those two, plus the idea that Cooper DeJean could also play the outside and base, I think the Eagles have done as much as they can do this offseason to try to replace Slay.
All right, Moshe, mailbag questions. We got a lot for this Mosher Monday mailbag edition. So let's get into a little mailbag edition of Football at 4, a Mosher Monday mailbag for you here. Let's start with one here from Ken in Absecon. He wants to know, Geoff, which player does Geoff Mosher think have the most to prove at training camp?
Wow, the most to prove. Well, there's clearly a lot of guys who are going to kind of come under scrutiny because they're stepping into starting roles for the first time. I like the first thing that jumped into my head would be Moro Ajomo, because he's stepping into a role that, nobody saw Milton Williams playing as well. We all thought Milton Williams was playing pretty well going into last year, but he exploded. There were times where he just dominated games. Single-handedly, but dominated games. And now that's up to Moro Ajomo. But Ajomo was a 7th-round pick, I believe, whereas Milton Williams was a 3rd-round pick, an incredible athlete. So I don't know if it's fair to say, hey, you, Moro Ajomo, you've got to be as good as Milton Williams. So for the spirit of the question, I don't know if I'm being fair in that regard, but certainly he's a candidate. And then I would say on offense, Tyler Steen is a guy. He is a 3rd-round pick. There are expectations of him to perform at a high level. He has to step in for Mekhi Becton now and carry on the tradition, and he doesn't have to play at an all-pro level, but he's got to be good enough so that you don't notice that there's a drop-off on this really good offensive line.
All right, Mosher mailbag question. Let's go to Stephen Lower Cape May. Is Nakobe Dean in the mix for a major role, in your opinion, or do you think the Eagles have moved on internally?
I don't think they've moved on internally at all. Now,
it's an interesting question, though. Do they think that he's not going to be the same player when he comes back? Maybe that's kind of where he's going. I don't want to put words in Steve's mouth, but that's a thought, right?
Yeah, I've been given no indication that they don't expect him to be the same player. We've seen players. I know Torn Patellar has been a tough one, but we actually did a podcast with a former Eagles athletic trainer named Aaron Borgman. He was here in the 2000s under Andy, and he talked about some of the advancements made in that kind of a comeback. Like most things now, Achilles and ACL, where it's not as devastating as it used to be, just like the Achilles and as devastating as it used to be. So I have not been told or been alarmed for the fact that he might not come back the same player. And I think it's fair to say, have they moved on beyond this year? This will be his fourth season because they drafted a guy who played that position in the first round. They have Jeremiah Trotter Jr. as well. But for this year, after how he played last year, they are absolutely anticipating that he comes back and, becomes the starting linebacker opposite Zach Bond and gives the team the year that he gave them last year. And that's the expectation. They have enough in the tank, they think, to withstand it if it doesn't happen. And what happens beyond 2025 is certainly in question, but I have been no indication that they are no longer confident in his ability to play at a high level. But yes, the durability is a concern.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, a Mosher mailbag question. Is there an under-the-radar free agent signing that you think could surprise, Jeff? That's from Tim in Galloway.
Let's see. I feel like we talk so much about free agents that it's hard to find somebody who is quote-unquote under the radar. I will say that just based on Nick Sirianni's comments, that they clearly have a plan for Avery Williams, who's hurt right now, and they haven't disclosed the injury, but they want this guy who has played running back, who has played wide receiver or defense, actually. I think he's played cornerback also. They want him to be involved in the offense along with special teams in some kind of offensive weapon way. I'm not talking about getting the ball 10, 15 times a game. We know that. But based on how Nick Sirianni spoke about him, it sounds to me like they have some expectations of being able to put the ball in this guy's hands. And listen, you've heard them talk about doing things differently and freshening concepts and not getting stale this year, right? So that would be a guy in a gadget kind of way that you could see making a difference that we'll be talking about. Again, he's not going to get the ball a lot, but there might be a play or two per game that he breaks something and we say, man, that wound up being pretty significant.
All right, Jeff, we got a lot of questions today for Geoff Mosher. For those people who want to get Mosher mailbag questions in, you can always send them in a variety of ways, 609-403-0973. Let's go to Chase in Bridgeton. A Mosher mailbag question. How concerned should fans be about the lack of depth at cornerback? I wonder if that is a direct question from the news this morning.
I would be more concerned about the lack of depth at ILB than an interior defensive line, after Ajomo and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, who right now we have not seen Jordan Davis play more than a 1/2 down role. So if Jalen Carter gets hurt or if Ajomo gets hurt, then you're asking Thomas Booker or Ty Robinson, a rookie who we haven't even seen play, to play some meaningful snaps. So I'm not saying it's great at corner, but you got Adoree Jackson right now. You got Keely Ringo. Ricks has played a little bit, and you can always move Cooper DeJean out there if you need to, and then try to replace your nickel, and then just do things a little bit different with your sim pressure schemes. Like, you don't have to blitz the nickel in your sim pressure schemes. You can blitz somebody else. So concerned, yeah, but not as concerned as I am at some other positions.
All right, EB in Ventnor. EB. What's up, EB? Mosher mailbag question. Any chance the Eagles still trade for a veteran safety or linebacker before camp opens?
I don't think it would be a trade. I think it would be more likely to be signing a guy, especially inside linebacker, who's a veteran off the scrap heap. Same thing with safety. They have to see what they've got, and maybe they'll evaluate Justin Simmons. They certainly have a lot of picks, so I can understand and appreciate the question. But I think that they'd have to be really disappointed with what they saw from Drew Makuba specifically, or if there's a long-term injury to say Reed Blankenship or something happens at that position that's unexpected for them to make a trade to bring in a guy.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4. Couple more here. We got a lot today, so we'll save some for next week too. And Jeff's back on Wednesday. Maybe we'll do some Wednesday. But a little Mosher Monday mailbag. Emmett in Atlantic City. Who leads the team in sacks, Jeff? Hunt, Nolan Smith, or someone else?
That is a great question because there's really not an established guy here that you could pencil in like you could with Sweat, Reddick. even BG, you could say we'll get you 8 to 10. You know, I'm gonna go Jalen Carter in this one. You know what? He's the best player.
There you go.
In the front four, and even though a defensive tackle doesn't normally lead a team in sacks, I mean, he's good enough to be able to do it. He could get 11. I could see it happen. 11, 12, something like that.
All right. That's a little outside the box. He said Hunt, Nolan Smith, or someone else. You went someone else. Emmett, appreciate the question. Let's go to Phil in Glassboro. Mosher mailbag question. The most trusted receiver not named AJ or Devontae?
Oh, boy. That's a loaded question, and Phil knows it.
Well, I mean, you could take the easy way out here and go Goddard, but is he trying to ask for a receiver? I mean, yes, a receiver.
Yeah, I mean, in the spirit of the question, it's funny he said trusted and not best or most potential, but basically it would have to be Jahan Dotson just because he's played and started. And then you're looking at everybody else like Anaya Smith and Johnny Wilson who have, you know, barely played or played only a little, or Terrace Marshall who just got here and has no rapport yet with Jalen Hurts, at least in a game. So it would be Jahan Dotson.
All right, there you go. We got a bunch more. We'll save these for a little bit later on a Mosher Monday. A Mosher Monday mailbag edition of Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live. As we get into the summer, we'll do some more Mosher Monday mailbags here with Jeff. He'll be back on Wednesday's show, and we'll talk more Birds as they'll have their OTA, the final one tomorrow, so I'm sure we'll have some stuff to kind of look back on, and that will set up all of the training camp battles and decisions and, you know, things, storylines, and it all ends tomorrow for a little bit. But thanks to everybody who sent in those mailbag questions. You can always do that on the text board, 609-403-0973, or at Mike Gill Show on the Twitter X platform. There you go, Jeff. A lot of people want your expertise on those questions.
Well, I'm very, very humbled by that. Thank you, Mike.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. Don't forget to check out Jeff over at phillyvoice.com and the Inside the Birds podcast. Thanks, man.
You got it.
All right, Jeff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.